We'll talk about that.
It's dark down here. It's quite poor. Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Ian J. Cole. We are a music and art channel, and this is a video in a series about how to start a record label. All of the previous episodes are in the description section down below, and if this is the first time that you've been here, I recommend that you start at number 1 and work through them all. This video is number 24 and is about recording and mastering. We'll have a look at what is a master recording and who historically owns these recordings. Then we'll have a look at what record companies do with the recordings and who pays for these recordings. And then we'll have a brief look at the difference between recording and mastering. So, let's get started. A master recording is the original sound recording of a piece of music, and generally all of the copies in whatever format are derived from this master recording. And it has historically been record companies who own these recordings. That's why we have horror stories of famous bands and artists fighting to get ownership of their original master recordings. One of the latest being Taylor Swift. But throughout history there's been absolutely loads. The record company would argue that the artist was an unknown when they first signed the record deal, and the record company were taking all of the risks by paying the artist in advance to make the recording, and they should then reap the rewards afterwards when the artist makes it. But generally the artists end up paying the record company the advance back via the royalties on their sales and streams, but still they don't own the master recordings, which really doesn't seem very fair. Once a record company owns the master recordings, they can do what they like with them, regardless of what the artist would say. So, compilations, remixes, reissues are all part of the process, and the artist no longer has a say when the material is put out there. A better way to establish for small or micro labels is to share the outlay and the risk that is involved. Here at Sinners Music, we have artists who pay for all of their recording costs, and we just help them get the recordings out there, or sometimes we'll pay for the recording costs and recoup that outlay before sharing the profits, usually on a 50-50 basis with the artist or band. In whichever case, the master recordings always, and I repeat always, belong to the artist and not Sinners Music. So we can't put out reissues and remixes without the artist say so, which seems right and proper to me. So what should be the record company's involvement in the recording process? The label is there to help the artists get their music out, and the label will certainly have an opinion on the actual recording throughout the different stages of the recording process. And they may not, at the end of the day, accept the final recording for release. They're quite within their rights to do that. If they don't think that they can market it properly, or it's not really ready, then they have the right to refuse it. And I have done that in the past. So, lastly, let's look at what is mastering. Well, it's the final step in the recording process. It's the polish that optimizes playback quality on all the devices and platforms. So if you're mastering for vinyl, it's different from mastering for CD and streaming platforms. And if the budget allowed, it should always be undertaken by a qualified mastering engineer. Now, this isn't always the case. So if budgets are tight, an experienced studio engineer is one option to actually finish the actual mastering process off. And actually getting an engineer or a producer is one option to just do the mastering. Somebody who hasn't been involved in the recording process. If you have to master your own work, I mean, and I have done this in the past because working on a zero budget or a very low budget, I like to leave the finished mixes several weeks before starting the mastering process, but this really isn't ideal. There are a couple of books that are worth reading on this subject. One is Paul White's book. Paul White is the editor of Sound on Sound magazine, and he did an excellent book a few years ago called Recording and Production Techniques. And there is another book which really is the Bible on mastering, and this is Bob Catt's book, The Art and the Science of Mastering Audio. So those would be highly recommended, and I'll put some links down below to Amazon so that you can, if you're interested in buying these books, you can get them there. Full disclosure, I would get a little bit of a royalty from Amazon for recommending the books, but it doesn't mean to say that you pay any more for the books. So I hope you found this useful, and if you like what I do, hit the subscribe button. And I've also started a Patreon page to help fund the channel, where there is lots of other goodies to get your hands on. And that starts at £2 a month. So thanks very much for watching, and if you have any questions, just pop them in the links down below. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, bye bye.